Most people think a slamming door is just typical teenage rebellion. But psychology reveals a heartbreaking truth. This aggressive pushback is not defiance. It is the only language their pain has left. You ask a harmless question, and they snap, retreating into a dark room carrying a crushing silent weight. Dismissing this phase means ignoring a complete mental collapse. We will decode the 5 hidden signs of teenage depression and the way out. But first, what US city or state are you in tonight? I hope wherever you are in the hustle of America, you feel a little less lonely. The first sign of teenage depression is a sadness that seems to have no clear beginning. A teenager may sit alone in a dark bedroom while the rest of the house continues around them. They hear dishes being placed in the sink. They hear a television playing in another room. They see the afternoon light slowly disappear from the window, but they cannot find the energy to turn on a lamp. Hours pass without meaning. Sometimes, tears begin to fall, and even they do not understand why. Nothing terrible happened that day. No one died. There was no dramatic breakup, public humiliation, or catastrophic failure. From the outside, their life may appear completely normal. They have food, a place to sleep, people who care about them, and perhaps even opportunities that others would be grateful to have. That is what makes the sadness so confusing. They begin asking themselves questions that quietly become accusations. Why am I unhappy when my life is not that bad? Why can't I just appreciate what I have? Why am I crying when I do not even know what is wrong? Teenagers are often told that these should be the most exciting years of their lives. They are expected to laugh loudly, make memories, discover who they are, fall in love, dream about the future, and enjoy a freedom that adults supposedly miss. But for a teenager experiencing depression, youth does not feel bright, it feels gray. The world is still moving, but they feel separated from it, as if they are watching life through thick glass. They can see other people smiling, they can hear their friends making plans. They may even smile at the right moments and say that everything is fine, but inside, something has gone quiet. This is where many families become confused. They search for a reason because they believe sadness must always have a visible cause. They ask whether something happened at school. They wonder whether there is a problem with friends. They may say, "You have nothing to be depressed about." But depression does not always wait for a tragedy. Sometimes it begins as a gradual change in the systems that regulate mood, motivation, sleep, energy, and emotional reward. Brain chemistry is far more complex than a simple shortage of one chemical, but serotonin, dopamine, stress hormones, genetics, sleep patterns, social pressure, trauma, and development can all influence how a teenager feels. The pain is real even when the reason is difficult to explain. Ordinary sadness usually moves. It rises after disappointment, rejection, conflict, or loss, and then slowly softens. A teenager may cry after failing a test and feel somewhat better after talking to a friend. They may feel heartbroken for several days and still experience moments of laughter, hunger, curiosity, or hope. Depression can feel different. It stays. It follows them into the morning. It sits beside them in class. It waits in the hallway. It returns when the bedroom door closes. Even positive experiences may fail to reach them. A parent may offer a favorite meal. A friend may send a funny message. Or someone may say, "Cheer up. Things will get better." But the teenager does not know how to reach the place where better exists. This is not weakness. It is not ingratitude. And it is not evidence that they are choosing to be miserable. It may be a warning that their mind and body are carrying more than they can process alone. The second sign of teenage depression may look like the opposite of sadness. It may look like anger. At the dinner table, a harmless question suddenly becomes an argument. "How was school? Why do you always ask me that?" A parent reminds them to finish an assignment, clean their room, or put away their phone. The teenager snaps back with words sharper than the situation deserves. A younger sibling makes a small noise, and irritation explodes. A friend sends the wrong message at the wrong time, and the teenager responds with cruelty, disappears, or ends the friendship. To the people around them, this behavior may look like rebellion. They may be described as disrespectful, dramatic, difficult, selfish, or impossible to please. Adults may assume that hormones are responsible or that the teenager simply needs stronger discipline. Sometimes boundaries and consequences are necessary. Depression does not make hurtful behavior harmless, but behavior is also communication. And sometimes anger is the only language pain has left. A depressed teenager may not know how to say, "I feel empty, frightened, exhausted, and completely disconnected from myself." They may not possess the words to explain that getting through an ordinary school day feels like carrying a weight no one else can see. So the distress is displaced. The mind takes an emotion that feels too confusing, vulnerable, or overwhelming and redirects it toward a safer target. The teenager cannot fight the emptiness inside them, but they can fight the person asking them to take out the trash. They cannot control the fear they feel about the future, but they can control a conversation by ending it with anger. The anger becomes a wall. It pushes people away. Before they can ask questions the teenager does not know how to answer. It creates distance before anyone can notice how frightened they truly are. In some cases, anger may also feel better than numbness. Anger is hot. It produces energy. It makes the heart beat faster. For a few moments, it can replace helplessness with a sense of power. When a teenager has felt emotionally dead for weeks, rage may become proof that they can still feel something. But after the argument ends, the power disappears. They return to their room. The door closes. The silence comes back. Then guilt arrives. They replay the cruel words they used. They remember the expression on their parents' face or the message their friends stopped answering. They tell themselves that they ruin everything, that no one should have to deal with them, and that perhaps everyone would be happier if they simply stayed away. This creates a painful cycle. Depression produces irritability. Irritability damages relationships. Damaged relationships create shame and loneliness. Shame and loneliness deepen the depression. The teenager may appear to be attacking everyone around them, while internally, the person they are attacking most relentlessly is themselves. That is why we must look beyond the surface. Not every angry teenager is depressed. Conflict, stress, changing hormones, identity development, family tension, and the need for independence are all normal parts of adolescence. But when irritability becomes persistent, intense, and combined with hopelessness, sleep changes, withdrawal, falling performance, or a loss of interest in life, it deserves attention rather than another label. Behind the raised voice may be a quiet question. Can anyone see that I am not okay? Behind the slammed door may be a plea, they are too ashamed to speak. Please do not give up on me just because I do not know how to let you in. The third sign of teenage depression is the feeling that life has become impossible to steer. A teenager may sit in front of an unfinished assignment and feel as if the page is closing in on them. Every sentence feels heavy. Every deadline feels like proof that they are falling behind. Thoughts about grades, friendships, family expectations, and the future merge into one enormous pressure they cannot escape. From the outside, it may look like procrastination. A parent sees unfinished work and asks why they are not trying harder. A teacher sees missed assignments and assumes they do not care. But inside, the teenager may be fighting a different battle. They are not simply asking, "Can I finish this?" They are thinking, "What is the point? I am going to fail anyway." Depression can slowly damage a person's sense of control. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a loss of internal locus of control, the belief that your actions can influence what happens next. When that belief weakens, effort begins to feel useless. The teenager may try to study and still feel behind. They may apologize and still believe everyone is disappointed. They may promise themselves that tomorrow will be different, only to wake up with the same exhaustion. Eventually, the mind learns a dangerous lesson. Nothing I do changes anything. That belief can become learned helplessness. The teenager stops reaching for solutions, not because they are lazy, but because emotional defeat has taught them that movement will not matter. They compare themselves to classmates who seem organized, ambitious, and excited about the future. Instead of feeling encouraged, they feel exposed. Everyone else is moving forward. Why am I standing still? The answer depression gives them is rarely compassionate. Because you are weak. Because you are a burden. Because you will never become anything. These thoughts can feel like facts, but they are symptoms. Depression changes how the mind interprets evidence. One low grade becomes proof of total failure. One friendship problem becomes proof that no one will stay. One mistake becomes a permanent identity. When hopelessness, guilt, worthlessness, or a sense of being trapped lasts for weeks, it should never be dismissed as laziness. It may mean the teenager's ability to imagine change is collapsing. The fourth sign is a growing retreat from other people. At first, the changes may seem small. A message is read but never answered. A weekend plan is canceled because they are too tired. They stop sitting with friends at lunch. They stay in their room during family gatherings. Invitations that once excited them now feel like obligations. Friends assume they are being ignored. Parents worry they are becoming secretive. But social withdrawal is often not a rejection of love. It is an attempt to survive exhaustion. A depressed teenager may miss their friends while refusing to answer them. They may want comfort while locking the door. They may feel painfully lonely and still avoid every opportunity for connection. Being around people requires energy. It requires facial expressions, conversation, attention, and the ability to respond when someone asks, "Are you okay?" For someone using most of their strength just to get through the day, pretending to be normal can become unbearable. This is emotional masking. They smile so no one worries. They laugh even though they feel nothing. They say they are tired because it sounds simpler than saying they no longer recognize themselves. After hours of performing, isolation may feel like the only place where they can stop acting. But the relief is temporary. The longer they disappear, the more disconnected they become. Friends stop inviting them because they expect another refusal. The teenager then interprets that distance as confirmation that no one truly cares. Again, depression creates the evidence it later uses against them. "You are alone," it whispers. "No one noticed you were gone. No one would understand even if you tried to explain." That is why a withdrawn teenager does not always need pressure to be more social. They may first need one safe person who can sit beside them without demanding a performance. Someone who can say, "You do not have to pretend with me. I am here, and I am not going anywhere." Sometimes the first thread of recovery is not a solution. It is the experience of being seen without being judged. The fifth sign of teenage depression is not always crying, anger, or visible despair. Sometimes it is the disappearance of joy. A guitar that once filled the room with music begins collecting dust in the corner. A teenager who used to count the hours until soccer practice quietly removes their name from the team. A favorite television show plays in the background, but they barely follow the story. The video game that once kept them laughing with friends now feels repetitive and empty. They may still participate because other people expect them to. They attend practice but feel absent. They sit with friends but cannot connect to the conversation. They press play on a favorite song and wait for the familiar emotion to return. Nothing happens. This can be one of the most frightening parts of depression, because the teenager may no longer feel deeply sad. They may feel nothing at all. People often imagine depression as endless crying, but its deepest point can be emotional numbness. Pain becomes so constant that the mind begins turning down the volume on everything. Unfortunately, it cannot silence only the painful emotions. Excitement fades too. Curiosity disappears. Love can feel distant. Even comforting memories lose their warmth. This loss of pleasure is called anhedonia. It happens when the brain's reward system stops responding normally to experiences that once created motivation or enjoyment. The teenager may understand intellectually that something is supposed to feel good, but their body no longer produces the emotional response. A parent may say, "You used to love this." The teenager knows. That is exactly why it hurts. They do not need another reminder of who they used to be. They remember the version of themselves who laughed without forcing it, became excited about small plans, and cared about what happened tomorrow. Now, they may feel as if that person has disappeared. This is often when self-blame becomes especially cruel. They think they are boring, unmotivated, ungrateful, broken. They may fear that they have permanently lost the ability to feel happy. But anhedonia is not a personality. It is not proof that they no longer care about their family, friends, talents, or dreams. It is a symptom, and symptoms can change when they are recognized and treated. That is the truth connecting all 5 signs. Persistent sadness without an obvious reason. Irritability that hides emotional pain. A growing belief that nothing can improve. Withdrawal from people they still secretly need. And the loss of pleasure in activities that once made life feel meaningful. One sign alone does not automatically mean a teenager has depression. Adolescence naturally includes changing moods, conflict, exhaustion, identity struggles, and periods of pulling away. The pattern matters, the intensity matters, and the length of time matters. When these changes continue for weeks, disrupt school, relationships, sleep, appetite, hygiene, or daily functioning, it is time to take them seriously. Not with panic, not with punishment, with attention. Stories shared publicly by people such as Willow Smith remind us that emotional suffering does not choose its victims according to age, success, talent, family background, or opportunity. A person can appear fortunate and still be hurting. They can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly alone. Pain does not become less real because someone else has a harder life. A teenager does not need to earn the right to ask for help. If you recognize yourself in these signs, please understand that depression is not a verdict on your future. The voice telling you that nothing will change is speaking from inside the illness. It cannot see every possibility that still exists beyond this moment. Tell someone. You might begin with a parent, teacher, school counselor, doctor, coach, therapist, or another adult who has shown that they can listen without immediately judging you. You do not need a perfect explanation. You can simply say, "I have not felt like myself for a while, and I think I need help." That sentence is enough to open the door. And if a teenager trusts you with those words, resist the urge to immediately lecture, compare, correct, or search for a simple solution. Listen carefully. Thank them for telling you. Help them reach qualified support. If they talk about wanting to die, harming themselves, disappearing, or believing others would be better without them, treat it as urgent. Stay with them and contact emergency services or a crisis professional in your area. Silence allows depression to convince people that they are alone. Speaking breaks that illusion. If this story feels familiar, you are welcome to share what you have been carrying in the comments, even if all you can write is, "I understand." And subscribe if you want more conversations that make difficult emotions easier to name. You are not weak for needing help. You are human, and the part of you that is still listening may be the part that has not given up.